We're recording.
Okay, excellent.
Is that on?
I think it is on. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Natasha said you could hear it up there, so.
There's overflow in 506.
Yeah, I think we're full in this room. So why don't you guys
overflow in 506?
head up.
Oliver.
506.
In the back. There's one seat back there, and then there's also 506. There's overflow in 506.
What?
He just turned around.
So another minute or two? Another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Another minute or two, and then we'll get started. All right.
Wait, were you? Oh, I came in late, sat on the ground. I was talking. No, I wasn't edit.
So is there a way for them to ask questions from?
There's not, and that's been really bothering me, actually. I don't know how to do that. We're going to have a TA up there, but I don't think there's a way for them, audio up there, to come down here. Okay. And I was thinking about trying to set up Skype or something, but...
I mean, I think the easiest thing might be, like, if they ask questions and, like, the TA can't answer, they can always, like, instant message you, but we'd have to have a way for you to see it.
Yeah. I kind of want to, I thought, like, let's just see where we are in terms of number of people after a week or two. If we're all down here, then there's no problem. There's not really space down here anymore. Yeah. So do we know where the cut of the camera is? Like, are you, can you guys?
We're probably in it.
Yeah. Oh, good idea, Pat. Just so the people upstairs can see the TV. All right. All right, guys. Well, why don't we get started? I'm Professor Stephanie Telix, and we're going to tell you in this semester about artificial intelligence. So first off, we wanted to start off by introducing the course staff. So why don't we have the TAs introduce each other.
I'm Allison. I'm a senior, and I TA'd this class last year.
I'm good. You should go by Jack. I'm a youth here.
My name's Pat. Login's P. Maiden, and I'm the head TA. Miles, I'm a junior, and I'm a UTA.
Why don't you guys walk over so the people upstairs, so the people upstairs can see the other people.
I'm Stephen Bronner. I'm a third-year PhD researching with Stephanie on robotics and AI.
Grad TA.
Grad TA.
Yeah.
I'm Jake. I'm a senior, and I'm a UTA.
I'm Natasha. I'm a junior, and I'm a UTA.
And DK.
I'm DK. I'm GTA. I'm working with Eugene Charniak, working on natural language processing stuff.
And there's two more UTAs who couldn't be here this morning, so.
Vina and Hari
are
not here right now, but they are also UTA.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Oh yeah, Mike's not here either.
He was shopping a course.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks, guys. That's the course staff. And you'll learn more about me throughout the semester, and even during this lecture. Before we really get started, though, I have a few questions about you. So how many of you guys are grad students? How many of you guys are undergrads? Most of you. How many of you are freshmen? I'm not a freshman. Although it is my first semester at Brown, so I'm kind of like you guys. I'm new here. Sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? CS concentrators? Other concentrators? Somebody shout out your other concentration. Bio.
Science and society.
Science? Classics. Over here.
Philosophy. Art history.
Philosophy. Cool. Art history. That's awesome. Over here.
Applied math.
Applied math.
Physics.
Physics. Cool. So somebody tell me why you guys are interested in AI. What brings you here today? Graduation requirements. Right, we are all about here, graduating, right. Okay, so somebody else.
The sheer potential?
The sheer potential, yeah, that's actually something that gets me very excited about AI, just the potential of what we can do with our computers. Somebody else. What?
The movie?
The movie. Oh, I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard about it. There's a lot of AI in science fiction. In fact, one of the theme of our course, we're all like science fiction AI characters, all the course staff. I think that's a really cool way to think of the vision of what these machines, what these algorithms and concepts that we are going to tell you about in this course are a way to depict or imagine how they're going to change our lives. And it gives a lot of inspiration to what we should actually go out and build as engineers and computer scientists. Somebody else? Yeah.
It would be great if computers could do things for me so I don't have to.
Yes, that to me, like, we're all really busy, right? We have computers and they help us. How can they help us more? So that's a big motivation for me in my work in AI. So not just AI, but in robotics, we have computers that can actually change the physical world, not just the virtual world, but the physical world. How can they change the physical world to make it better for us? How can they get me coffee or clean my room or vacuum or who knows what? The scope is huge. Anybody else? Yeah.
Self-driving cars.
Self-driving cars. Yes, I really want that one. I live in Boston, actually, so I have this terrible commute. Wouldn't it be nice if I could work that whole way, door to door? How many of you guys have a commute? No? Yes? I think self-driving car, oh, sorry, yeah. I have to stay in the screen. Anybody, walk, yeah, well, that's true. Exercise is good, too. Okay, one more person. Yeah?
Get on the good side of Skynet.
Get on the good side of Skynet. Some people are worried about how these technologies are going to change our lives. There's a lot of instances already about how these technologies have replaced people, have been doing things. In some cases, like games like chess, we have AIs that play chess better than a person. We have these self-driving cars. The potential is that they're going to drive better and more safely than people. They're never going to fall asleep. They're going to have sensors all the way around the car. So like you're not going to be able to like have a blind spot. There just won't be one because your sensors are going to be completely visible and you're always going to be looking. That's going to put a lot of people out of work. There's a potential for a lot of displacement because of these technologies. I'm a technology optimist myself, so I think we should still do it. But I think there's an ethical side of it about what technologies are we going to build and how are we going to go out? How are you guys going to go out and change the world using these technologies and make the world a better place and not make Skynet? All right, so why don't we kind of dig in? So my goals, I'll start out with kind of the goals for this course. So am I still in the screen, Pat, if I stand here?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. So what I want you guys to be able to do after you finish this course is understand theoretical and also practical approaches to building intelligent systems. So we're going to talk today about what I mean when I say intelligent systems. I want to, and I'm going to sort of frame this in this sort of very general algorithm for making something intelligent. It's going to seem, I'm going to give it to you later, it's going to seem kind of silly. But it's basically you're going to search for different things you could do, all the different possible things you could do, and then score them. And I'm going to show you how a lot of very complicated, very sophisticated mathematical techniques at the end of the day boil down to this searching and scoring type of behavior. So we're going to get pretty mathematical as the semester goes on. We're going to talk a lot about probability, uncertainty, and modeling what the agent knows, what the system knows, and making decisions based on those models. But it all, in the end, boils down to searching and scoring, and we're going to sort of see how that plays out in the classroom and also through projects that you're going to go and implement. And another theme that I'd like to get across in this course is how these techniques can be used and are currently being used to solve real-world problems, are currently being used and how you can go out and use them to solve real-world problems. So I think a lot of the point of being here in a university like this, getting a computer science education, is that you guys can go out and change the world. So I want there to be a connection between the ideas that we're talking about in this course and specific ways we can go out and use those ideas to change the world. So in the focus of the course in terms of the projects is going to be about sort of real-world problems, like how can we actually make a robot figure out where it is? And how can we do email classification? And that hopefully will kind of close the loop between theory and practice. So we'll have some general ideas, but we'll also show you how they can actually be applied to make systems do cool things, things I think are cool. Maybe you guys won't think they're cool, but hopefully you will. All right, so to start out, let's talk about what intelligence is. So somebody tell me what they think intelligence is. What does it mean for something to be intelligent? Yes?
It has the capacity to analyze the world around it and make decisions.
Yes, I like that. Capacity to analyze the world around it and make decisions. What else?
Think critically.
Think critically, yeah. Yeah, so not just do the easy thing, but try to do the best thing for some definition of best. Somebody else, yeah.
Integrate sensory information and form concepts.
Yeah, so integrate sensory information and form concepts. But what is it going to do with those concepts?
To then
make decisions, yeah. So for me, a lot of this kind of closes the loop, and it turns into making decisions. So we can think all we want, but like we want to be able to actually go out and do stuff. Whether that's stuff in the virtual world or stuff in the physical world if you're a robot. You have to actually close the loop and make decisions with all the thinking that you're doing. So here's my next question. How do we know if we've actually succeeded and made something that's intelligent? How do we know if something is intelligent?
If it scores high on the SAT.
If it scores high on the SAT. So here's an example. This is my pet rock. His name is Rocco. Is Rocco intelligent? This isn't a trick question. How many think Rocco is intelligent? No? Yes? A couple people? How many think Rocco is not intelligent? Yeah, poor Rocco. I don't think Rocco is very intelligent. So here's another example. This is my parents' cat. Her name is Gizmo. And she's going to do some tricks here. Oh. How many people think Gizmo is intelligent? Yeah, I think she is. Stand up on her hind legs. Yeah. All right, here's another example. This is my son. His name is Jay. He's kind of looking at some leaves. He's a year old right now. How many people think Jay is intelligent? Yeah? Yeah, it's really interesting with him because, he started out as one cell. When I was pregnant with him, right? And then he became this thing that can go out and look at leaves and think that they're really cool. How many people think that he's intelligent now? This picture, as of this picture. Yeah. How many people think he was intelligent when he was one cell? Maybe. Yeah. So it's a spectrum, right? So Rocco isn't intelligent. We don't think. Gizmo probably is. Jay, I definitely think Jay's intelligent. I mean, I definitely think all of you and I am all intelligent. We sort of pass this test. So there's some kind of spectrum, and it's fuzzy. Sometime at one point, Jay probably wasn't. I'm gonna take a position and say I don't think he was intelligent when he was one cell, but I think now he is. Somehow, as over time, he's going through the spectrum, and he becomes this agent that's capable of making decisions in the world and taking actions in the world that meet his goals, whatever his goals might be. So these are all kind of I guess the rock isn't really biological, but examples from the natural world, not examples that we people went out and created. So here's my smartphone. I put it on silent mode so it wouldn't ring during lecture, but it is on. How many people think my smartphone is intelligent? About a quarter of you, maybe? Yeah, maybe. How many people think it could be intelligent if we did the right things to it, if we had the right algorithms? I think so too. I think that a lot of intelligent behavior is about the programs that we put on these devices. This is my robot. It's Baxter. It's downstairs in 134, and I'd be happy to show it to you guys if anybody's interested. How many people think my robot is intelligent? What does it do? Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I like that question. So right now, it really doesn't do a whole lot. It's got this demo where we can sort of make an arm go in weightless mode, and then the other arm kind of mirrors it. And me and my students had this hackathon last week. We almost got it picking things up. Doesn't quite pick things up yet. It almost picked things up. How many people think my robot's intelligent? No. But maybe by the end of the semester, we'll get there, okay? So one of the goals of what I'm doing outside of this course is trying to make robots like these and smartphones and computers come up with the right algorithms and the right software so that these systems can be intelligent, can engage in intelligent behavior that's useful to people, not just intelligent for the sake of being intelligent, but actually solving problems that people care about in the real world. So the sort of promise of a platform like this is that this thing can actually pick things up and put things down. This smartphone knows where you are. It can, it has your whole life in it. My life is in the smartphone, right? My calendar and my email and pictures of my son and everything, right? There's a lot of potential for this thing and that thing to change our lives for the better, and in ways that where if we just give it the right software. And the goal of this course is to try to make systems that can do that can engage in intelligent and useful behavior if we can just come up with the right software. We're going to talk about the different algorithmic approaches and engineering approaches that we can do to have systems engage in intelligent behavior. We'll also talk about the limitations of those approaches. So we don't really have Skynet yet, or like the AI from, I didn't see She, but I saw the Steven Spielberg AI movie, right? We don't have that level of sophistication yet, but we're getting there. There's a lot of exciting progress in the field. So just thinking a little bit more about what it means to be intelligent. And I don't know, probably you guys haven't read the book chapter yet, but the book kind of breaks it down into these 4 ways that you could define intelligence, or ways you could think about what it means to be intelligence. So the first thing you could say is maybe something is intelligent if it acts like a person. What do you guys think of that? Is something intelligent if it acts like a person? Yes. So what's an example of intelligent behavior that would be involve acting like a person? Yeah.
Communicating.
Communicating, yeah. So like using natural language like we're doing. Can Gizmo do that? My cat? No. Kind of. Well, yeah, she was responding to signals, right? So there was some like, holding up the hoop, and that she knew she was supposed to jump over it. Even if she couldn't, like let's say that she wasn't trained to do all these tricks, would you still think she's intelligent? Yeah. There's some sophisticated behavior going on in a cat, or a rat, or a mouse, or a sparrow, going out looking for food, finding mates, and sort of living, right? So is acting like a person sufficient to show somebody is intelligent? If somebody is indistinguishable from a person, if some agent is indistinguishable from a person, does that mean they're definitely intelligent? No. Well, that's the next slide, yes. So here's you're anticipating me here, right. Is it necessary? So if is it possible for somebody to be intelligent without acting like a person? Yes, I think so too. And I think the cat and rat examples are good examples of that. We don't have to act like a person. That said, one of the most famous definitions of what it means to be intelligent is really thinking about what's a sufficient definition. If something can act like a person and be indistinguishable from a person, it's definitely intelligent. Maybe there's lesser tests that we could come up with, like the cat and rat test versions of them, that would work, that would also be intelligent. But for sure, if they can act like a person, it is definitely intelligent. And this was this notion of a sufficient test for what it means to be intelligent. It's called the Turing Test, after Alan Turing. This is a picture of him. He wrote this paper in 1950 in which he proposed a game. It's a procedure that you can execute with a person who's like a judge, and an autonomous agent, and sort of other people. So the way that it works is that you're in a room and you're typing to something, and you don't know whether that thing is a human or a program, a computer program running on a computer. And this was back in 1950. Computers were like this really new, cool thing. So this was some of the first people thinking about this. So what it would look like, this is from his original paper, is you'd say something like, please write me a sonnet on the subject of the Forth Bridge. Turing was in England. This is a famous bridge in Scotland. It was recently built when he wrote this paper. So it's a reference that was popular at the time, although now I had to look it up to know what that meant. And then the agent responds, like, count me in on this one. I never could write poetry. So then you ask a question, add 34,957 to 70,764. Then the agent pauses for about 30 seconds and then gives this answer, 105,621. Is that answer right? Yeah. Give us 30 seconds, yeah? It is incorrect. How many people think it's right? I kind of gave it away. How many people think it's incorrect? How many people did not raise their hand in the first two? Yeah, okay. So arithmetic is kind of challenging. So he's got this thing where pauses 30 seconds and gives the answer, even though a little pocket calculator could do this instantaneously as soon as you type it in. And it is, in fact, the wrong answer. It's off by 1 digit. So this is sort of saying how the machine, if it is a machine answering these questions, is supposed to imitate what a human would do, even if that's not always the best thing. Like maybe if it's supposed to be cooperative, it should just tell you the right answer, and you can move on with your life. And then he's like, do you play chess? And this says yes. And then I have my king at my K1 and no other pieces. You have only K at K6 and R at R1. It's your move. What do you play? Anybody play chess? And then he thinks for a while and he says R to R18, checkmate. So it's sort of, the beauty of the Turing test is that you can just take any subject of discourse from art history, somebody here was art history, to biology, to anything we can think of, to my cat Gizmo, and have a conversation about it, poetry, and try to test and challenge the computer. So this is sort of a very difficult test for a computer to pass, and no computer that we have, no program that we have can yet pass it. There's this kind of sketchy competition called the Loebner Prize, where people compete to write programs, these chatbots that try to pass the Turing test. And what they had to do is cripple the Turing test. So they say, well, you can only talk about movies, or you can only talk about Shakespeare or something like that. And then in that one specific domain, people try to make convincing chatbots. And they're kind of hokey. Like people in the sort of algorithm side of AI don't really have a lot of respect for the people doing this competition, because a lot of it is just big databases and these kind of random conversations about like sort of movies and things like that. So I think that the Turing test is a really big vision, but it's not really what I want to focus on in terms of how we think about what it means to be intelligent. I think that what's more useful is to think about what we want these systems to do. Like it's nice if it can talk to you, maybe it gives you, a fun game, but like what can we do to actually make these systems solve problems for us? What algorithms do we need to do that? I think that gives much more interesting questions, and it's led to a lot more algorithmic progress in the field of artificial intelligence. All right, so that's sort of acting like a person. Another way that we could think about what it means to be intelligent is not acting, but thinking like a person. So here's my son, Jay. This is his brain. This is an MRI of him. I entered him in a study just to get this video. So this is his brain. There's a lot going on inside of his brain. So what do we think about thinking like a person? If we can make a machine that thinks like a person, is that a way to get to AI? Yeah, some people are nodding their heads. So there's this field called cognitive science. And it's really about how do people think. And it's science. So we're in computer science, but I think of myself in a lot of ways as engineering. We're about building things. We're about making these systems go. Cognitive science is more descriptive. So let's look at the picture of Jay's brain, and let's look at it with like MRIs and all kinds of fancy technology. A huge advance is happening in this field right now because we have more and more sophisticated ways of looking at brains and at neurons and at the computational substrate that is controlling, sort of running our brains and making things happen. And there's a lot of really interesting research about how people and animals produce behavior. How do they think? What do they think about? What makes them do the things that they do? And some of that work has actually led to algorithms, sort of going back to AI. There's a lot of feedback between, for example, how animals see and how people see, and how our computer vision algorithms that process video work and sort of make things go in the world. I work on making robots that understand natural language, the sort of understanding commands that come out of our mouth when I'm talking. And there's a lot of work, I've drawn a lot from cognitive science, which is from people who've been studying how people use language. Not just English, but like all kinds of different languages, the different syntactic structures that underlie what words mean, and sort of translating these ideas into computation. So I think there's a lot to be learned by studying how people think and sort of this whole field of cognitive science. But it's not AI. So there's a lot of sort of cross-connects between the two. The difference between that and AI is a cognitive scientist kind of wins if they know for sure that this is what a person does. An AI researcher wins if you can make a robot do something cool, or if you can make an autonomous agent actually engage in that useful behavior, however you do it. It doesn't have to be the way that a person does, although it might be. It's not like it's bad, and we can take a lot of inspiration from what we know about how people do it. But it doesn't have to be that way. So in some ways it kind of makes it easier because we don't have to exactly copy what people do. But in some ways it makes it harder because we can't just sort of wire up a neuron and just hope it and then let it go exactly the way people do. Although there's a big project doing this. There's these flatworms with 1,000 neurons, And people are trying to make a complete flatworm brain in simulation, where they just wire up all the neurons just the way a flatworm was, and then they say go in like virtual flatworm land, and have it go, and have it actually faithfully simulate how this little guy's very little flatworm, how its brain is working. And the goal is to do a rat and then scale it up. So there's people sort of doing lots of interesting work at the border here, but there is sort of a border. There's sort of cognitive science, which is how brains work, and there's AI, which is how can we make intelligent agents. So another thing we could do or think about is thinking rationally. So not just thinking like a person, but this distinction that I'm sort of drawing, where the agent is thinking rationally. Okay. So here's my robot. This is a forklift. It's thinking rationally right now. It's thinking really, really hard. Yeah. So yeah? That's it, yeah. So what's the problem with this? It didn't do anything. Maybe it decided it wasn't, maybe that was the right thing not to do anything. Maybe there was some dangerous situation, or maybe it just wanted to stay out of the person's way. What's that? What's that?
Maybe it knows the universe is pointless and just sits.
Maybe it does. So that's kind of, you guys are laughing at that, but I think that's actually a really interesting point about this whole field and these systems. Maybe the universe really is pointless, and we shouldn't be like. What does it even mean to think rationally or to act rationally or act like a person if we're not actually solving somebody's problems? So sort of next thing in this list is like acting rationally. But what does acting rationally mean if the universe is pointless? So I said I'm a technology optimist. I think acting rationally means acting rationally to do stuff for us, for people, for whoever the person is that's using that machine. To act rationally, do we need to think rationally? Not necessarily. Yeah, maybe not. But you think it would help to think rationally? I think so too. So we're going to talk about thinking rationally in this course. There's a whole section about probability theory. We're going to read this very theoretical text about probability as a model for how to make an agent that thinks rationally. But we're going to try to close that loop. So we're thinking rationally for the purpose of acting rationally. Because at the end of the day, acting rationally with this subclause to achieve people's goals, to meet people's needs, to do something that's useful for somebody. Hopefully not just Skynet, but like for some person. So kind of closing this loop is what this course is about. How can we make agents that act rationally? And what I'm going to try to do is give you the tools and the experiences. So like I'm going to talk to you, and we're going to have these sort of lecture conversations, but also programming assignments and homework assignments and reading assignments, so that you know something about how we can make agents which act rationally in order to meet people's needs. Any questions so far? Okay. No questions? Nobody has any questions at all? Somebody ask a question.
Why'd you name the robot Baxter?
Why did I name the robot? I did not name the. Actually, we need to name our robot. So Baxter is like saying that's my robot, Honda or something. It was made by a company called Rethink Robotics, and the brand name of it is Baxter. We actually are in my group we're looking for a name for this particular instance of Baxter, especially because we might get another one later, and then we wouldn't want to call them both Baxter. That would be sad. So if any of you have suggestions about the name, I would actually appreciate that. Yeah.
Get it to name itself.
So, I'm thinking about like these online role-playing games where you have these generators of like fantasy-style names, where you sort of sample it and come up with names. I haven't really thought about that. That kind of makes me. It's a really interesting idea. All right, guys. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is what can AI do today? And just give you some examples of some of the things that people have used, the techniques that we're going to learn in this course, some of the things people have used these techniques to make systems do. So the first example, this is the forklift. This is the same robot I showed you before that when it was thinking rationally. Trust me. Now I'm going to show you a video of it actually acting rationally. So it's going to follow a natural language command. So here we go.
Put the tire pallet on the truck.
So this gets speech recognized with a speech recognition system, kind of like what runs on Siri with your iPhone. And then it runs inference to figure out what actions it should take. So the searching and scoring thing is happening. This is a sort of model of what that search looks like. We can talk more about it later. And then it goes off and does stuff. So here's the world. Here's some pallets. This is an ammo pallet, and a box pallet, and a tire pallet. We're going to speed it up so we don't have to wait around too long. There's nobody driving that forklift. There's nobody in the driver's seat. We have somebody in the back there with a kill switch in case Skynet comes along. And no, more seriously, in case some failure happens, in case we accidentally hit something or a sensor failure happens. But it's doing this completely autonomously. So we've got sensors, these laser scanners here. And there's actuators. So there's a drive-by-wire system in the seat that's telling it what motor commands to send in order to carry out this natural language request this was me in the video that I gave it. Yes?
Does it recognize a tire by looking at it with like a camera or something and like recognize the shape of the tire?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. It kind of does and it kind of doesn't. What we would really like is if it just drove in, never been here before, it looked around and it said, oh, tire pallet, done. It doesn't quite do that. What we have to do is give it a tour of the world. So we didn't show it in this video, but before we shot this video, we had to kind of give it a tour and say, circle a pallet in the tire pallet and the box pallet and the ammo pallet and the truck. And say, this is a tire pallet, this is a box pallet, this is a truck. It took about 15 or 20 minutes to do that. And after that's done, it's got a model in its head about where these objects are. And using that model at runtime, now when it's doing this execution autonomously, it's able to figure out, oh, these words, tire pallet, map to this thing that I was given a tour about before.
So it maps just to a location?
A location and a geometry, an object in its sort of mental model of the environment. Yeah? It's able to put things on flat surfaces. So it can move pallets to other locations this is like a parking lot at MIT, but like it was designed to run in Army warehouses, Army SSAs. So they have sort of storage areas and they'll have flatbed trucks and different kinds of trucks. And this was a huge project run by a lot of different people at MIT and other places contributed to it. And it can put pallets and sort of heavy things around in different types of trucks and in different environments. Yes?
So like, could you have a line of pallets and then just tell it to like go and get only one of them, or like go and get 2 tire pallets and it can tell that like there's one and then there's another one behind it? Or do you need to like tell it, this is a tire pallet, this is a tire pallet, like all of them? Yeah,
so what you're seeing in this video, this was the state-of-the-art 2011, where you give it a command, and if there were 2 or 3 tire pallets, it would get confused. It would just pick one randomly and hope it was the right one. And if it was the wrong one, it would do the wrong thing. So it would sort of make a mistake. What my research is trying to make it adjust these kinds of problems. So if there are multiple tire pallets, it can ask a question like, well, do you mean this tire pallet? Or do you mean the one on the left? And the person can give an answer, and then it can go off and try to do the right thing. So we're thinking a lot about like dialogue and interaction. And this actually kind of dovetails with the course structure. So we're going to talk first about kind of modeling how the world works. And then we're going to talk about making one decision. So here you kind of saw one decision. Like here's a command, here's the action, that's it. At the end of the course, in the last sort of quarter of it, we're going to talk about making sequences of decisions. So here's a command. I could just try to follow it. I could also ask for more information. Or I could wait and maybe the person will do it on my own. Or there's sort of an array of different actions that I could take over time. And it's actually a much more complicated problem than just making a decision and forgetting about it and then making the next decision, making the next decision. And you can do better if you have that opportunity to do sequences of decisions because you can decide to collect more information. And we'll talk about ways that we can make agents that can do that. Any more questions? Yeah?
This more or less ties on to that, but was the robot designed to deal with a situation if a tire fell off of the pallet? I mean, what would happen if its traditional response went slightly awry?
Yeah, no, we had a kind of similar problem where there's actually some like heavy batteries inside those tires. Because when we first tried to shoot this video, the pallet wasn't heavy enough for the robot's, I'm holding a pallet sensor. It's like a weight sensor in the mast there to trigger. So it would pick it up and it would actually work, but it would think that it hadn't picked it up. And so we had to make the pallet heavier in order to make that happen. And that kind of, I call that hacking. Like we had to we didn't do like a mathematically elegant thing. It wasn't self-aware and realized, oh, my weight sensor isn't quite right. I have to recalibrate it. We as the engineers and the designers had to go in and mess with it in order to make it work. And there's a lot of this kind of messing with that happens in sort of AI, in any big system, and especially in any big AI system. Because these systems are so complicated and they're interacting in such complicated environments, there's a lot of ways for things to go wrong. And some of them we're trying to fix with algorithms and machine learning and nice math and stuff, but some of them we had to fix by putting something heavy inside those tires just to make the sensor fire. More questions? All right. So another example, a lot of my examples are from robotics because I'm a roboticist, but there's a lot of AI outside of robotics. So another example is a pretty famous success in AI was Watson playing Jeopardy. So I'm going to show you guys a video of what this guy was doing.
This is Jeopardy, the IBM challenge. Here are today's contestants. From a computer system able to rapidly understand and analyze natural language, Watson. And from Seattle, Washington.
Watson, start us, please. The European Union for 200. Each year, the EU selects capitals of culture. One of the 2010 cities was this Turkish meeting place of cultures. Watson.
What is Istanbul?
You're right.
800, same category.
Elected every 5 years, it has 736 members from 7 parties. Watson.
What is Parliament?
Right.
1,000, same category.
As of 2010, Croatia and Macedonia are candidates, but this is the only former Yugoslav republic in the EU. Brad.
What is Bosnia?
That's Ken Jennings.
Watson.
What is Serbia?
No, that too is incorrect. Correct response is, what is Slovenia? Watson, back to you.
Dialing for dialects for 800.
While Maltese borrows many words from Italian, it developed from a dialect of this Semitic language. Watson.
What is Arabic?
You are right.
1,000, same cat.
All right. So I kind of go for a while so you can get a sense. I'm intimidated by Watson. It's really fast. The guy that was sitting on the left there who was really quiet was Ken Jennings. Who's heard of him? Yeah, that's the human world champion in Jeopardy. And Watson beat him, in a reel with Alice Dirac up there. Yeah.
I heard that they also kind of cheated like what you said in the Turing Test, where some types of questions involving poems and trick words, they got them out of the competition so that Watson could be able to compete because he wouldn't be able to understand them.
It's possible that they eliminated some types of questions. Even if they did, if you can get the sense of the breadth of the ones you saw just in that list, I think it's pretty impressive. Yes.
I also I read kind of contrary to that they specifically programmed Watson to try and deal with questions like that, and that was one of the major challenges.
Yeah. So I was at a talk at a conference by the guy who ran the project to make Watson work, and he talked a little bit about how they made it display this breadth of behavior, and part of the answer was, at the high level, this general algorithm of searching and scoring. So if you saw in the video, it showed this list of possible answers that it was considering. I don't know if you guys remember seeing that down there, that little bar graph. Yeah. Yeah.
What's an ask a question?
What's that?
Can he ask a question?
Can Watson ask a question? In sort of that demo, I don't think it can. But what they're doing now is making it do things like medical diagnosis. And you could also imagine coming up with this sort of uncertainty graph where you think, maybe I'm completely uniform between these 3 answers. That's a good thing you could use in order to ask a question. You could say, well, here's the 3 answers. Which one is it? Can you tell me? Can you help me? So at the highest level, the way that Watson worked is searching through lots of different possible answers. Lots and lots and lots of different possible answers. It was a huge machine room. They basically downloaded the entire internet. Because they weren't plugged into the internet. They downloaded the whole internet. And they put it on their local machine. And they put a lot of CPUs. So IBM, one of the reasons they're doing this is they want people to buy their computers. So they're motivated to work on tasks that require lots of computation in parallel. And that's one of the sort of secrets to Watson. Lots and lots of computers that were searching for lots and lots of different answers, or considering lots and lots of different answers. And then if you saw that each of those, in that bar graph, they had the sort of the top 3, and each of those answers had a number associated with it. So for all those answers that they're considering, they're scoring somehow. We haven't really said how, but they're somehow coming up with some number about how good that answer is. How likely is this answer that I found on the internet somehow, how likely is that answer to be the correct answer to the Jeopardy question? And in the case of Watson, the way that they did the scoring, they had a lot of different ways. So it would kind of branch out. It would do some analysis of the type of the question. Was it a wordplay? Was it geography? Was it about history or something else? And then they would sort of branch off into different strategies for coming up with scores that went into how the question was answered. So lots and lots of different people. I think the Watson team was about 20 people. And they would each sort of take off a chunk of different types of questions and program it with lots of these different strategies. And then sort of play lots of games of Jeopardy, give it lots of test examples, and just mess with it until eventually they were able to beat the best human players. Yes?
Did we get to see how Watson tried to deal with the daily double?
It would deal with those kinds of questions. It was playing full-on Jeopardy, but I did not put that in the video.
It's making the decision based on how much money it should bet, based on its confidence for a particular type of question.
Yeah, they were. I remember in the talk at AAAI that I was at, he was talking about the strategy for that. Like which question do you pick? How much do you pick, 800 or 600 or whatever, in order to sort of optimize its chances at winning. So there was some thought about the best algorithms for that. Yes?
Does it always do the search, or does it also learn?
So when it's playing the game, it doesn't learn. But one of the ways that it develops that scoring function and that searching function is through machine learning. And we're going to talk about that. Like, how can it look at lots of instances of Jeopardy questions and answers and lots of text, so like, for example, Wikipedia, and learn how to answer these questions very quickly, the way that a person might do that. And we'll talk about techniques for how to do that in the course. More questions? Okay. So another example of sort of AI in sort of non-robotic settings is machine translation. So this is the Polish Wikipedia page for AI, Sztuczna Inteligencja. My husband's Polish, that's why I picked Polish. And what you could do now is kind of amazing when you think about it, is that I can put some text in this box in Google Translate. I just copied the first sentence here. And it just automatically not only detects the language, but translates it into English so that I can sort of read that text without having to know Polish or pick your language. And this is pretty amazing when you think about it. People who translate for the UN or for Canada, where they have French and English data sets, they are highly trained people. It's a very hard thing to come up with these kinds of sentences sort of from one language to the other. But somehow we have these algorithms that are able to make these kinds of decisions. And again, the way that these algorithms work is this sort of searching and scoring. So there's an algorithm that will search through a space of all the possible sentences in English. Can we really do that? Like, can we search through, can we just like enumerate all the sentences in English, all of them? How long will that take? Too long. What's it? Yes, there's an infinite number of these sentences. So there's a lot of tricks in order to, even though we like to be able to search through the whole set of all possible English sentences, there's a lot of tricks in order to sort of shrink our search space to the right set, the likely candidate set. And then once we're inside that search space, there's a scoring function. So it uses a probabilistic generative model. It looks at a lot of what's called parallel data sets of English and Polish. And it counts up how many times a word like sztuczna appears with a word like artificial. And then it learns to assign this probability distribution, this number, for that translation. And when we sort of look, and the combination of searching in that smaller search space, not all English sentences, but sort of the right subset of likely candidate English sentences, and then maximizing them according to the scoring function, gives us a pretty good translation. It's something that's pretty readable, it's mostly grammatical, and it lets you get the gist of what's going on. So it's kind of cool, like that we have this capability. So the next thing I wanted to do is kind of ask you guys, like how, you all have some computer science background, that's one of the prerequisites. How do you think AI could help you? Like and this is something I think is really exciting because where we are in AI is there's a lot of new breakthroughs that are happening right now in robotics and in the underlying algorithms that we use to do these searches and these scoring. There's like a whole new world of possible programs just waiting to be written. And you guys are going to go out and write them. You're going to go work for Google, you're going to go start startups, you're going to go get PhDs and do research, and you're going to change the world by making these programs. What kinds of things do you think would be cool? Yeah?
Save energy.
Save energy, yeah. So somebody at the Media Lab at MIT is working on an autonomous thermostat that can turn on and off based on when people are in the house. So when you're not there, it gets colder, you're saving energy. When you are there, it's warm and you're comfortable. There's a huge, that's just one example. Yeah?
Playing poker.
Playing poker. Yeah. So there's a sort of more, I don't know what the right word is, more larger scale version of this called hedge funds on Wall Street. A lot of people who come out with this background, with your background, go and work on Wall Street for hedge funds doing algorithmic trading. And that's what they're doing. They're playing poker with all of our money, all of our retirement funds, and and basically trying to make trades intelligently. So people talk about like these high frequency trades faster than any human could do it. That's because a computer program is doing it. People are making programs that autonomously read press releases and then buy stocks. So like in the olden days, you would read a press release about, they just fired their CEO and they're like, okay, sell. But by the time you've done that, like 60 computer programs have already, made that reasoning and let it go and made the decision, and the market has equalized and you've lost your opportunity to make money by winning the market. And it's kind of this algorithmic arms race that's going on right now in Wall Street where everybody's trying to get the best minds to make more and more, to sort of duel against each other in order to make these algorithmic trades. And some people say it's good because it's like helping with market frequency. I kind of think it's sad. Like shouldn't the best minds be making robotic cars and robots and stuff? But anyway, that's how the world is going right now. And I have a lot of friends who went into Wall Street and made a lot of money doing it. So it's very lucrative. Yes?
Proving theorems in mathematics.
Proving theorems in mathematics, yeah. So there's a lot of work in this area right now. So some people are working on like crowdsourcing mathematics, and like there's I forget the name of it. There's like some the twin prime conjecture, and they're like not proving it, but finding examples of it for larger and larger and larger numbers. So kind of testing the validity of the theorem through computation. There's also a lot of work about actually proving theorems. So searching, like giving a set of axioms, search through all the set of true statements that fall out of those axioms, trying to find a proof for important conjectures of different kinds. Anything else? Yeah.
Discover new medicines and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of work in biology, protein folding is a big area. So what you have is like this chain of proteins, a chain of a protein, which is a chain of amino acids. But what happens is once you make that chain, like a ribosome does it inside a cell, then it kind of folds up into some weird thing. And the specific way that it folds up, it gives a very complicated 3D structure. And then it does something. It's an enzyme. Like, so it'll break up a particular molecule in a cell, or it'll be a hormone, or it'll activate things. And all the scope of biology comes from the different ways that these proteins fold. And there's a lot of work in trying to study how do the proteins fold, what makes them fold in one way versus another way, and simulating the different ways that they fold. A lot of work in drug discovery. So right now we're at a time where our antibiotics are running out. And so we need to find new antibiotics, and people are using computational methods to search through the simulation, the space of all the possible drugs, to find candidate drugs that we can then go out and build in chemistry, like in the wet lab, and see if they can actually help cure cancer or make a new antibiotic or sort of help people in their health. Yeah. Anything else?
Operating some dangerous thing which is not safe for man.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite applications of robotics. So the Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity and Curiosity. We have this amazing presence on other planets with our robots, where we can't yet send people there, but we're able to send our robots there. And it's far enough away that it takes sometimes 20 to 40 minutes to send a message from a computer on Earth to one of these robots that's operating on Mars. And the only way that we can do that is if that robot is operating autonomously. So it's making decisions on its own. I mean, we're telling it some things about what it should do, but it's making decisions on its own about what pictures to take and what direction to go in. And sometimes we don't really know what happened. So there's this kerfluffle right now about Curiosity, because they think it flipped a rock over or something, and they couldn't see exactly what happened. But there's a rock in the picture that wasn't there before. So and nobody really knows what's happening, because it's just a robot there, right? We have a lot of really interesting work sending our robots underwater. So trying to monitor the health of the ocean and the algae levels and global warming and how the different oxygen levels are affecting and our sort of pollution and sort of sustainability are affecting our water. And we can't really send people to do that. The space is too large. But our robots, our autonomous agents, are able to go off and do that and give us really cool information about how our lives and how humans are impacting our planet. All right, anybody else? One more. One more. Yeah.
If you're missing a leg or you can't move, it could be trained to move for you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work in robotics on prosthetics. So there's sort of passive prosthetics where you kind of stick something, like if you're missing a leg, where it doesn't actually actuate. There's work with active prosthetics where it actually is powered, and it'll power your ankle in the same way that a natural, real ankle would be powered in order to make you walk. And then there's the sort of cutting edge work is neural-controlled prosthetics. So the active ones now kind of respond based on where your leg is, and they kind of automatically try to do the right thing. Neural-controlled ones are going to connect directly to your brain, just like your real leg does. And then when you move around or kick it or something, your brain will tell it to do that, and then it goes off and do it. And there have been demonstrations of this where people have neurally controlled it, just by thinking, they make a robot arm do stuff, which I think is really cool. It's gonna have a lot of impact, not just in assistive technology, but new ways to interact with our computers, just by sort of really reading our minds. It's in the lab right now, but it's turning into reality. All right, guys. So this is sort of we sort of talked about some examples from my past, and you guys have all shouted out some really great examples of AI and how this technology is really, right now, changing the world and having positive effects on the world. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how we can actually do this, how these machines work. How can we make machines that act rationally to meet people's needs? So the course is going to be, the projects and stuff are going to be in Python. So I'm going to try to write a Python program called Act Rationally. So what do you guys think it should do? Yeah, well, I'm okay with that. But let's try to break it down in what would think rationally do?
Think rationally would need to take data input from some sort of sensors. They don't need to be real sensors. They can be digital equivalents. It would need to process that and then sort it into what's relevant, what isn't relevant, and then it would need to search what is relevant for things that it can use to make the decisions it's meant to make.
So input from the world, search for, yes, thanks Pat.
And you can use almost the whole board because it actually does just
So input from the world, and then what'd you say?
I forgot.
Oh, search.
Thank you.
For relevant stuff. I'm just going to say relevant because if it's irrelevant, it's relevant. And then, yeah?
Don't you also need, like, not just relevant?
Yeah.
Does it help me?
Does it help me? Yeah, I'm going to say that's part of relevant. Does it help me? Does it help me? And then what? Execute. Execute.
Well, actually, I think there would be a step between search for relevant stuff. You need to figure out how to use the relevant stuff to make the eventual decision and then act.
Stuff. And then make decision. And then act. And I think this stuff is about thinking rationally. Thinking rationally in order to act rationally. Okay, so I actually wrote this up in kind of pseudocodey Python. So here's a little Python program that does some version of that. So for action, and all the actions I could take, somehow score that action, get some number that's associated with it. And then if that score is greater than the best score, then save it off and save off that action. And then once you're done with that for loop, go off and execute the best action. So what do you guys think of that? Yeah?
Well, it's like trying to find every word in the English language. In a real world
Yeah.
situation, there'd be an infinite number of actions you could take.
Yeah. See? I bolded all actions. Yeah, so you're right. All actions is pretty big, isn't it? So a lot of what we need to think about is how can we make all actions not really be all possible actions, because we can't really search, we don't have the computation to search through every word in English, every word in English. If we're a robot and we're thinking about all the different places that we could go, all the different sequences of electrical commands we could send to that robot's motor, very quickly you get into the exponential blow up. You just can't enumerate all of those things. So somehow all actions we have to play some tricks in all actions. And a lot of what this course is going to be about is what those tricks are. So how can we play those tricks, and what are the effects of those tricks? Because when we play those tricks, when we say, okay, we're not going to consider all the sentences in English, what we're doing is we're making approximations, and we're throwing away some good stuff. If I'm not going to consider all the sentences, I might not be considering the best translation. If I do it wrong, I might not be. Even if I do it right, I might not be. So I'm making a trade-off between the sort of quality of this theoretical optimal solution and practicality, so I can get an answer that kind of might be good. So what else is hard about this algorithm, about this approach here? Yeah?
How do you say which one's better than the other?
Yeah, so this is a score function here. There's a lot inside of that. How could we write that score function? I heard you. So first you and then you.
Depends on the type of action. Depends on like what you're.
Right. It's very domain specific. So if I'm doing machine translation, I'm going to have one type of scoring function. If I'm trying to control a robot, I need another type of scoring function. I heard somebody else. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
You might want additional input, both for act rationally and for the score function, which is a goal.
Yeah. So I kind of left that off, but it's really implicitly, it's sort of implicit to this whole thing. If I'm going to pick good actions, I somehow want to pick actions that are likely to meet my goal. And if I'm going to have a scoring function that's going to be useful, it's going to correctly score actions, they should score them relative to a goal. So I didn't actually put that as input into the act rationally method, but really I should have. I think that it would be goal, and I'd pass that into the scoring function and into the all actions function. All right, so that's sort of these two ideas are going to be the theme of a lot of what we do in the course. We're going to try to take you through different ways, very pragmatic ways that people have used this kind of very high level and abstract approach to solve real world problems. We'll talk about different algorithms for searching, through the space of all actions and the trade-offs of those algorithms, and we'll talk about, we'll really get very quickly from score to probability. I'm a Bayesian. I like probability a lot. So we'll talk about how people have used probabilistic methods to produce that scoring function. And you can sort of learn it. You can also estimate it with from parameters that you give to the system. So this is sort of the structure of an AI, in my head, anyway. I don't know if the rest of the AI community really agree with me, but I think there's something here in the way that this algorithm kind of works at a very high level. So what I wanted to do next is kind of take you through what this looks like in practice.